Hi, I'm Robert from Bishop's Family Cycles here in Victoria and our new location in Vancouver. And today we're going to talk about the different types of e-cargo bikes for you and your family. This is a conversation we have regularly in our store, and I think it's important to talk about the pros and cons of each style of bike so that you can help decide what's best for your family. So the three different types of cargo bikes we often talk about here are longtails, long johns, which is a two-wheeled box bike, and trikes, which is a three-wheeled box bike. When we talk about all these cargo bikes, we want you to think about what is your 80% use case. Thinking about your cargo and test riding with your cargo are really important things to do when you're shopping cargo bikes. Each of these bikes is really unique in how they ride, and they all kind of have a different pro and con to why you would want to choose one for your family. We're going to start by talking about longtails. Longtails are a bike that looks like your regular bike with an extra long rack. It's the bike that most people are attracted to when they first walk into our store because they look at the other style bike and they think, oh, maybe that's going to be hard to ride. Maybe it's going to be too awkward. And so they want to talk about longtails first. You're on an e-bike, it accelerates quickly, you feel really strong. Empty longtails feel just like that. That's the upside of the longtail. You have the opportunity to carry your children, carry extra stuff, and when it's empty, it rides like a regular bicycle. The other place longtails are really best for are if you have storage problems. So you have a small condo, you have a small bike room, you're trying to get through a narrow door, you're going upstairs. Some have smaller wheels, but the reason manufacturers do that is to make them feel just a little less tippy. Those smaller wheels actually create a lower center of gravity. The downside of longtails are just like your regular bike, the heavier they get, the weirder they get to ride. They don't tend to have as good rain cover solutions. You're still packing panniers and you're strapping racks, and so it's still bike plus in the sense that you have to be prepared to bicycle. Longtails are best if you are riding the bike more often empty. And that may seem silly, but what happens is lots of people have a 1 kilometer commute with their children and they have a 20 kilometer commute to work. It's okay to have a weird bike for a kilometer. You ride your kids down the hill to school, you throw them off, and then you have a really great, fast, fun e-bike to get to work. So we highly recommend test riding with your planned cargo because that's going to help you figure out what bike's right for you. So the next type of cargo bike that we'll talk about is a two-wheeled box bike. Two-wheeled box bikes, a generic term for them would be a long john. Long john cargo bikes comes in varied lengths and sizes, just like all these types of cargo bikes. You still get this fast, fun, and maneuverable bicycle that you're used to. So you're on two wheels, you can take turns quickly, you can lean into turns. You feel like you're riding a regular bike. The upside of them is they really are designed to carry heavy loads. So not only are they better at carrying weight, you don't need special bags or panniers or straps or racks. You can walk out to your bike in the morning. Your kids can climb in themselves without tipping the bike over. You can chuck all their stuff in with them, and then you can ride away. It's also a lot more social. Your kids are sitting in front of you. You're chit-chatting as you ride. If you're trying to replace a car with a cargo bike, box bikes tend to be able to do that better. And long johns are kind of in between a trike and a longtail in the sense that they are fast, fun, and maneuverable with that big box on the front. Lots of people get on their friend's bike and they ride half a block and they go, whoa, that was weird. I don't like this. I don't want to ride it anymore. And that's understandable because they are weird for the first couple blocks. Most of the front wheels on box bikes are 20 inches. So they're real small wheels. And what that means is minor movements do a lot more. And so you're going to find that initially you're going to oversteer. You're going to kind of like really whip around on that thing, and that's going to feel awkward. The second thing that's odd is usually you can't see the front wheel. So what we don't know is when we ride a bicycle, oftentimes we're looking at that front wheel for balance. And so we keep trying to look down, we can't see that wheel, and that also throws us off. The last piece is the balance speed on a longer bike is going to be faster than on a shorter bike. And so what happens on these long johns is you have to go to a power walking speed to get your balance, not that walking speed you're used to on a regular bicycle. And that can feel intimidating initially. And so that's the real benefit of a long john is what you're doing is you're trading a slightly odd ride to have always the same odd ride. The downside of them is you do still have to balance the load. So for very small riders, very cautious riders, or very heavy loads, some people just don't like to have to balance the load. The idea of falling over with their cargo still feels too intimidating, and that's okay. And so that's where we start to talk about trikes. And trikes are just a short term for a tricycle. They're still a box bike, they're still a cargo bike, but the idea is they have 3 wheels. The trikes we sell tend to have 2 wheels in the front under the box and 1 wheel in the back. Trikes handle differently than a regular 2-wheeled bicycle. You cannot take turns as fast. You cannot go as fast. So all our tricycles, except for one, generally only assist to 25 kilometers an hour instead of 32. And the reason for that is trikes are unstable at high speeds. And so if you live in a place where you're going down very steep hills or you're traveling very long distances, trikes might not be the bike you want. But if you live in an urban environment like Victoria here, where you're traveling, 10 to 15 kilometers a day and your mostly residential streets are protected bike lanes, trikes can be a dream. And so it's important to think about what bike is right for where you live and what you're doing daily with it. Trikes are great because you can stop and keep your feet on the pedals and wait. My wife would say that's why you have a cup holder, so you can have a sip of coffee at your stoplights, right? And so trikes can be really a relaxing way to ride with really heavy weights. We've sold trikes to people who never learned to ride a 2-wheeled bike, right? Because you don't have to know how to ride a bike to ride a trike. Trikes also work really well for people who may have balance issues. And older folks tend to like trikes because they just don't have to have that stress of falling and maybe having an injury. The downsides of trikes though, and this is important to remember, is they're not for everybody. Lots of people can't ride it a little slower. There are people, and you know yourselves, right, who might ride fast, might really like to lead into turns, have been biking for a long time and really can't slow down to the trike life pace. And for those folks, you're gonna wanna look at a 2-wheeled box bike. But for those of you who are feeling nervous about riding a cargo bike or you have short rides, trikes can really be just a dream. So something to think about when you're picking out your cargo bike, apart from these 3 different types of cargo bikes and where you're riding, is what do you want to carry? Some of these bikes are going to be better at carrying certain loads than others. So one question we get lots about is carrying a dog. Now there are longtails that have kind of dog sort of solutions where you can put them up high on the rack, but every time your dog moves, you're going to feel them try to move the bike. And so sometimes those higher center of gravities aren't great for dogs. Sometimes those box bikes or bucket bikes work better for that. We get lots of questions about larger children or larger people, and so thinking about the total weight limit of the bike is really important as well. Some manufacturers set maximum rider weights, and some set maximum weights for each part of the bicycle. Some manufacturers set a weight for the entire bike, and they're not as picky about where you put that weight. Europe has cargo bike standards that are currently kind of progressing and evolving, and so lots of these brands that come out of Europe will be marked more specifically about where those loads can go. And that really doesn't refer to the braking strength of the bike. It talks a lot more about how the bike's going to handle up to a certain weight. The bikes we get here in North America might have total weights of the bike or total weights of the rack, and thinking more about that safe load limit as opposed to the feel of how the bike's going to handle. Thinking about your cargo and test riding with your cargo are really important things to do when you're shopping cargo bikes.